ambassador, so he reached out initially. I'm delighted to be here. I have a special place in my heart for student government. My undergrad institution, I served on our student government for all 4 years, and my first professional job was working as a full-time advisor for Student Government Association. So I appreciate the work all of you are doing. I also recognize it's Super Bowl Sunday. It's a beautiful day. I will try and be as brief as possible. I am paid professionally to speak publicly about the University of Dayton for anywhere up to an hour, so sometimes that's hard, but I just want to hit some of the highlights. Brian asked me to speak on the incoming class, just statistics to update all of you, a little bit about our reputation as an institution, trends in enrollment, updates just from our office, and then really what sets us apart in the marketplace. So I want to start actually talking about that class that just came in. So we're going to do first-year students. I don't know exactly how the makeup is. So welcome to all of you with you at some point. But we're really proud of the class we brought in. It was just over about 2,200 students. It was just shy of our record for the largest incoming class ever, and that occurred the year prior. So that was right at about 2,300. So sophomores, you're the biggest. Our goal is to stay right between about 21 and 2,300. We really like the size we're at as an institution. Many of you may not know this, at 8,000, it's actually the largest undergraduate population of a private school in Ohio. And then we're smaller than all the main campuses of the four-year institution. So kind of sit right there in the middle. We really like that size. We know it lends itself to that sense of community we know you all appreciate, so that is our goal, is to step right around that neighborhood in terms of size. This was also our most racially and ethnically diverse class. About 17% of the incoming class was from underrepresented racial and ethnic populations, and about 15% of the class was Pell eligible, which was the largest proportion since 2010. Students came from 39 states and 18 countries. One of our big highlights is the Flyer Promise program. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. The first year we enrolled 42 students. This incoming class had 49. And those are students from select high schools who we've partnered with to provide additional financial and support resources to help them here at UD. In the first year class, they had a 100% retention rate. So we were really excited by that. It's a new program that's working. Those students all came back for their sophomore year. Something that many of you probably don't think about, we think about a lot in the enrollment management world, very stable in terms of where all of you as students were distributed from an academic perspective. So all of our programs saw stable enrollment, meaning there's no concern about programs having to close or too many students in classes. It was a pretty broad academic diversity of incoming students. We also set a record for students coming from regional markets, and that's one of the updates I want to share, as well as a record number in the we call it the modern era, within as far back as we can go from the Dayton area. So we're seeing growth in Dayton. We're also seeing growth in select regional markets. So our office, one of the updates is that we've actually hired and expanded our regional staff. So in our office, we have members, but then we also have 2 full-time staff members in Chicago, the greater DC area. We've had one in the Northeast, but then we've added now so that we have someone, we also have someone in Puerto Rico. We added a position in the South, as well as the Southwest, and then one in New York City. So these are markets that are growing, and we're already seeing dividends from that investment, so investing in those areas with more students. The other thing is we're enhancing our reputation nationally, and I was asked to speak about that. Reputation is one of the hardest things to pin down. How do what is the reputation of a college? What we've seen though in surveys with especially high school counselors is there has been a shift. Historically, UD has been seen often as a regional institution. A lot of that is our name. The University of Dayton often confuses people. We see we've invested in getting our name out there nationally, and sometimes there is a bit of a party school reputation about the university. But in interviewing counselors, we've really moved away from that reputation, which is something we're proud of. And counselors are constantly talking about the academics that we're providing to students, talking more and more about that experiential learning, which is something we're very excited about. And then our last year's incoming class, we had 30 students with the University of Dayton Sinclair Academy. So those 30 students moved from campus, and that program looks to continue to expand each and every year. And then finally, we held a record number of events and hosted a record number of visitors. That was nice and cheery. There is a little bit of gray, a little bit of rain on the horizon, though, in the world of enrollment management, especially in terms of national trends. So national enrollment in traditional four-year colleges is expected to be flat. It may go up a little bit, down a little bit, it depends. What we do know is that in the Midwest, so where we do draw the majority of our students, we are expecting a decrease in the number of high school graduates. And that just has to do with population shift moving out of the Midwest. So that's why we've invested in those markets I mentioned, especially the Southwest and the Southeast, as well as adding a person in New York City. So areas where there is population growth, we're trying to make sure that we are active there so the institution can continue to be stable and continue to see those great class sizes. And the majority of the decline, so kind of some silver lining, does come from for-profit schools closing, so that's not something we are threatened by as an institution. But actually one of the weird things, as the economy gets better, college enrollment tends to drop. So we also expect that to be a major player, and that's something you may hear about. Community colleges have sometimes seen a hit on that. The way our structure is, being primarily what would be considered traditional college-age students, we expect our enrollment to be able to stay steady as we move through, because the next 5 years are really kind of tedious in terms of the number of, tedious isn't the right word, but are very challenging in terms of enrollment, especially in the Midwest. So then just a couple of specific updates from our office. I hit on a few of them. I talked about sticking to our size. We would really love to grow the Flyer Promise program. So right now it's at 49 students. Our hope is to stay about 49 or 50 next year. The truth is, it's an expensive program. The big part of it is providing financial assistance. So we are looking to outside donors and organizations to really try and grow that specific program. Because we want to continue to be more diverse every year, and we mean that in every sense of the word. So we want to be more racially and ethnically diverse. We want to be more socioeconomically diverse. We want to continue that trend of diversity of academic interest, so we can continue to offer those four core divisions on campus, all of our programs. And we want to, so that's where that Flyer Promise comes into play, especially the socioeconomic diversity. We're going to continue to grow the UD Sinclair Academy. We already have numbers. They do fluctuate a bit because students can come in really at any point. But it's a great entry point, especially for local students, to be able to transition in a very affordable way from high school to community college into the University of Dayton. We also released a new net price calculator this year. This is something I'm sure many of you heard about in your looking at colleges, in your college search experience, is transparency. And the way we approach things, UD was one of the first schools in the country to have that net tuition guarantee, so where all of your tuitions are locked in, where we increase your scholarship each year. So really that's what we're focusing on from a financial aid perspective, being transparent, being upfront, and making sure students know what kind of investment they're making. For those of you that may or may not know, we just kind of graduated. We're now 6 years out of beginning that program, so we have some really strong data. Decreased student loan debt, increased graduation rates, increased success rates after graduation. So we really believe in this transparent net tuition model and fully intend on continuing it as long as we can. One other kind of some smaller things we've launched, we do have a new virtual tour, especially for international students and students coming from further away, trying to provide that opportunity to see campus. I mentioned the net price calculator, so ours is very accurate. Many of you, if you remember, you're probably like, what is he talking about? But in terms of a net price calculator, it's the calculator we put on our website so students know how much they actually have to pay to go to college before they get their financial aid. We invested in ours quite a bit in terms of time and energy, and it's very accurate. So we're excited to be able to be transparent with students even before they apply, so they have a good idea of what the cost is going to be. So my final piece, I was asked to just talk about what do we, the description was main selling points. Selling, we're describing an experience, we're helping students find their best fit for college after graduation. But what do we really highlight? So what do I do day to day? What is it that we're talking about with prospective students and families? This time of year it's financial aid, so our office sent out financial aid letters last week is when they started, so that's basically all I'm going to do for the next 6 weeks. Is have those conversations, and we're happy to have them, but right now that's kind of our focus, it's talking about affordability. And in terms of this incoming class, we fully intend to be right where we were last year. We're seeing a similar application size, similar deposits for this time of year. We are about the same in terms of diversity and geographic representation. So we're on track to do everything I did mention. What we talk about is community. It's something I know you all hear about and talk about, you're a part of. And it's something we talk about as well when we're on the road talking with prospective students. The academically rigorous programs, something we discuss quite a bit, and especially experiential learning. That is a shift. I'm sure many of you may have chosen UD because of those internships, those co-ops, those opportunities to learn outside of the classroom. And that's something that we're really trying to be and are in fact a leader in, especially compared to our peer institutions. So we talk quite a bit about that. And then finally, postgraduate success. So what we're very proud of is all of you. What you have all done here is great, but the fact that you are going to graduate in 4 years, engineers 5 years, if you're doing your co-ops, that many of you are having these opportunities, and that we just released this year's numbers. So we're at 97% of last year's class was employed or in graduate school, military, or long-term service within 6 months of graduation. So this postgraduate success, families know when they invest in a University of Dayton education, they're investing in a quality education that will lead to something after graduation. That's really what we talk about in the Office of Admission. So that's all I have. I did try and keep it brief, just hit some of the main highlights. If you have specific questions or things you'd like to know more about the Office of Enrollment Management, specifically admission and financially.
Are you guys shifting your, what an ideal student looks like? So are you shifting what you want from your ACT and GPAs for students coming in?
That was a good question. I did mention, so this was also the academically strongest class. The average ACT was up 1 point. The average SAT was up 50 points.
What was the ACT?
So ACT now, the average is a 20, I think it's a 25 and a half. Just about a 26. I forget the SAT equivalent. Working in the Midwest, most students take the ACT. So forget the SAT equivalent, and our average GPA moved up to about 3.5, so it's about 3.4. We do not want to become Harvard, Princeton, or Yale. So we want to attract academically a rigorous group of students, but I will tell you what I tell prospective students, and we do mean it honestly. When we're admitting a student, our primary focus is, are you academically qualified and prepared for this program? Can you be successful? We don't want to admit students who aren't going to succeed. So that's why we would deny someone. It's not a blanket like, oh, we just want to get rid of students for the sake of being selected. That is not our mission. Our mission is to be highly
does admissions financially plan on expanding the Flyer Promise program to more?
Part of Flyer Promise. And part of that is going to be looking at, because for those who aren't aware, Flyer Promise is a select program, and it is based on certain high schools. So we partner with select high schools, so it's not available to all students. The long-term goal is to make it actually work on its open everywhere. That is the long-term goal. In the short term, it's to shift locally and then to Marion high schools. So it's kind of going to be the focus. But it's based on, we are actively doing it. We've partnered with the Office of the Alumni Association Development to raise more funds specifically for Flyer Promise.
Do we see that diversity in the students increasing through the next following years? Or because you said it increased like this past year, and there are more diverse students that have benefited this year?
Yeah, so it's been consistently going up. Our hope that it continues to increase diversity. It's twofold. Part of it is that Marion's mission, that idea of a community is inclusive of all. But truthfully, more diverse. So not being a diverse campus truly is not an option anymore. And our hope is that we can kind of be a leader in that, driven by our morals and values as a Marion institution, to bring in all types of students. But then also our population as a country should get more diverse. So we will continue to get more diverse, and we have to.
I know you kind of alluded to this, but I know you probably can't answer. But is there like a rounded number that you guys would probably cap it? Because I know Dr. Spina has spoken on that we're not looking to grow a bigger university, even given the latest trends. But like I said, are you going to cap it?
So we would. I mean, our goal is to stay under 2,300 students.
Okay, so
it's not that easy. Unfortunately, it's not a science. The way colleges work, once we offer admission, we have to, like, basically we say you can come until May 1st to submit your deposit. You may remember that May 1 deadline. So the goal is about 2,300. If 2,400 students from this class submit their deposit, they're going to be on campus, and then we would adjust accordingly for the following year. And then if only 2,000 showed up, we would adjust accordingly for the following year. So it isn't an exact science, but yeah, we truly no intention of becoming 9,000, 10,000 students at all.
All those numbers that you're saying at the beginning, can we find those online, or are those just kept within the?
Oh no, every number I pulled from a press release because I didn't. We have them, but internally our reports are like 17 pages and they're not easy to read. So I just went to the press release that kind of pulled all the highlights. I Googled University of Dayton class of 2022. It was like the second option. So all of these numbers are public. Every number of a previous class is public. Schools, it's called iPads. These are reports. If you ever want to know like the real nitty gritty, in terms of how we break down by gender or ethnicity or income level, that's all on our website, easily accessible. Just search iPads. Every college has to produce that. The only numbers you're not going to get are the current, who we're currently recruiting, because we don't have final numbers until May. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much for...
Here. Vice President Shahowski. Present. Vice President Financial Body. Vice President Communication Pearson.
Here.
Speaker Myers.
Here.
Chief of Staff Machado.
Here.
Chief of Staff Fisher.
Here.
Chief of Staff Fogg. Here. Sergeant Tobin.
Here.
Are any chairs who are not directors here? Director Smith Custer. Here. Director Enderby.
Here.
Director Elmore. Director Savage.
Here.
Senator Petros. Senator Gual.
Present.
Senator Jagels.
Present.
Senator Ojeda. Here. Senator Stewart.
Here.
Senator Reeves.
Present.
Senator Trotline.
Here.
Senator Hubert.
Here.
Senator Ward. Present. Senator Schmidt.
Here.
Senator Silvas. Senator Sundermeyer.
Present.
Senator Baeza. Senator Osterling.
Present.
Senator Clegg. Senator Kane.
Thanks so much, Lauren. At this time, are there any public announcements? Seeing none, are there any public comments or concerns? Okay, I do have one concern getting into it before my report. The piece of legislation that was to go before Senate tonight, Joe is going to recommend that it gets tabled. But there's a sort of a bigger issue with this, especially with resolutions that are written and pushed out by exec. I gave this resolution to you guys like 4 or 5 days ago, and it's kind of frustrating walking in and people are reading it for the first time and are kind of panicking because it is controversial in nature. It's about Title IX, it's about sexual violence prevention efforts, and it is important that you guys actually read the legislation before coming into Senate. For example, Senators Reese and Jagels approached me with some concerns that they had. Like I think an hour after I put it in the group meet, Jake and I were able to find a way that we could make the resolution better so that he could hop on as a co-sponsor. But that's really what should be happening. And maybe that's my fault for not making it clear, but there were a lot of concerns as soon as I walked in. People came up, hey, I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this problem with the resolution. And that's fine, but you can also communicate those concerns in the group, especially for things, again, that are pushed out by that. For example, I can't speak on Senate floor about this resolution, and there were ways that we could have tried to at least work around it during the week, because now we're most likely going to table it. We have another week where it needs to be discussed. We're going to bring in some more parties, but just in the future, please try to be on top of that. Yeah.
The only thing I would counter that with is like, don't in a group be just like, hey, who wants to co-sponsor this Title IX thing? Because in nature, people are like, oh, I'm agreeing, like, oh, Title IX, I should probably put my name on that. It can't be anything. And I guarantee you, most of the people that put their name on it did not agree with it.
Counter I would add to that is I actually had conversations with all the people that did hop on as co-sponsors, and for the large part, all of them I saw.
There was people that like liked your message before you even like finished the resolution about co-sponsoring. So it's like you shouldn't co-sponsor something that you haven't even seen yet.
And I agree with that. And I think that that's a really good point. That when people do ask for co-sponsorships, make sure you know what you're actually co-sponsoring.
Yeah.
All right. Any other public comments or concerns? Seeing none, any senators or SGA members giving reports this evening?
Just real quick, Tuesday we will have TED Talks for Batu Week. So it's the 50th, this year's 50th anniversary of Batu, for those of you who did not know. So please come out because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Any other SGA members giving reports this evening? Random announcement from you.
Matty Cooper Ryder and I are part of a committee on advising public safety. We do have a meeting coming up this Friday. Should you guys have any questions, comments, concerns that you would like either Matty, Ryder, or myself to bring up in that meeting, please let me know sooner rather than later.
Who's in the meeting? Like,
Who's in the meeting?
Who's across the table?
So it is a direct meeting with Chief Chapman, his assistant chief, Small's kid, and then also a mix of individuals who are involved in Greek life, and professors, faculty, and staff, other members of the administration and council members. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or things that you would like me to raise in that meeting, shoot me an email. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. All right, any other SGA members giving reports this evening?
Real quick, I'm in the process of, so after our avian event, we had people fill out forms about concerns they have about their academics and stuff related to university policy, just anything they want brought up. So like I'm currently going through all those comments and concerns. If you have any personal ones that you've heard or anything for yourself, you can just attack or send me a message or something through me or whatever, and just let me know what those are, and I can take those into account too, because I want to bring the more common issues of grievances, I guess, to the people on the academic side that I work with.
Thanks, Connor. Any other reports this evening? Awesome. Moving into mine and trying to keep it short because I do realize that we all want to go watch the Super Bowl. Thank you, first of all, to Maya and to everyone that was involved in planning the cadre training. For those of you that were there, it was really successful. So just wanted a quick shout out. That was an awesome event. And I think it was really beneficial that us as SGA leaders did learn about the recovery process, and how to be allies for those that are going through the recovery process. Moving on, this upcoming week, just two things to keep in mind other than Maya's Tough Talk. We do have a meeting on Tuesday with myself, Erica, if she's able to make it, as well as Maddie Cooper Ryder and one of her committee members, in regards to planning more of the spring send-off. Again, SGA's main role in that is going to be finding the artists for that time slot that we're in charge of. I've spoken to Batu, and we are going to try to select the most diverse range in terms of actual entertainment, but backgrounds, things like that. So keep that in mind as we do go forward with this process, but we'll be sure to report back next weekend with what was talked about at that meeting and what we're going to do moving forward. Also, this upcoming week, hopefully, we're still in the process of planning it, will be our second meeting with the administration in regards to the decision by housing and the administration to make spring break a blackout period, as well as limit the return until 3 p.m. What's been going on this week, and I apologize if it seems like the exec team has kept you in the dark about this, but myself, Erica, and Ryan have been writing a sort of list of legitimate concerns that we've been hearing from students, as well as proposed compromises that we have in regards to trying to alleviate some of those concerns. The reason for this is, and I think Erica can testify and Ryan can testify to this as well, our first meeting was very intense emotionally, especially on my part, and I think we didn't do a good of a job as we could have in terms of actually speaking out in regards to our concerns and making sure that the concerns that we did talk about were the legitimate ones and not the illegitimate ones. So we're going to have this meeting, and it's still sort of up in the air what we are going to do after that in regards to communicating. Obviously, we'll keep you guys updated with what happens in this meeting, but in regards to how we're going to move forward in terms of communicating this with the student body, things like that, we will obviously keep you guys in the loop. The reason that we did not bring anyone else in to help write this document is we've heard quite a lot of voices throughout the past 2 weeks, and we've obviously taken those into account when we wrote this. So we weren't ignoring any of you or any of your concerns. We just didn't want 30 different people trying to write the same document. Other than that, that is all I have. Yeah, Tom, your question.
I just had question on the general time frame of getting the spring break thing resolved. Just because looking at it from their side,
Yeah.
a good strategy would be just keep having these personal meetings and pushing them off until every other week. But like as far as our side, getting that fixed sooner rather than later. I feel like emails, like obviously these in-person meetings are important because there's things you can't say in the email that you want to convey face to face. But I think a lot of it is like more urgent.
Yeah, I'm going to give the administration the benefit of the doubt on this one. As soon as we sent him an email asking for a second meeting, Chris Schran's assistant replied to us, and it is a little bit hard to find the time that Erica, myself, Ryan, Chris Schran, Bill Fisher, Steve Herndon, Chris, and Amy can all meet in the same time frame. But they've been very cordial in terms of getting us a quick response. I think from our standpoint, it's going to be, obviously we want to do something quickly, but we don't want to come across as impulsive or irrational, because that was part of the whole reason why we're still here today. So obviously we want to get this communicated as quickly as possible, but we want to make sure that it's qualitative and what we're pushing out is the right solution, not necessarily just something to appease everyone. All right, thanks guys. Go Flyers. Go watch the Super Bowl. All right. At this time, Joe, can you lead us in Senate floor?
Thank you. Seeing as the time is 5:40, I call Senate floor to order. Please.
Director Smith-Custer. Here. Director Enderby.
Here.
Director Elmore. Director Savage.
Here.
Senator Petros. Senator Wow.
Here.
Senator Jagels.
Present.
Senator Almeida. Here. Senator Stewart.
Here.
Senator Reese.
Here.
Senator Trotline.
Here.
Senator Hubert.
Here.
Senator Ward.
Present.
Senator Schmidt.
Here.
Senator Silvas. Senator Sundermeyer.
Present.
Senator Baiza. Senator Osterling.
Present.
Senator Tway. Senator Canning. 13 voting members.
13.
15.
15, thank you. Seeing as there are 15 voting members in attendance, the majority will be 8 and 2/3 will be 10. Any old business? Seeing none, new business. Mr. Trevor, or excuse me, Reese.
Move to suspend the rules. Just ask Chris a quick question about this Senate resolution.
Okay, seconds. All in favor say aye. All opposed?
So just to clarify, Chris, the numbered points on this, those are copy and pasted from a document that we cannot amend, correct?
Correct. Ryan has signed a document that reads exactly that. Can I jump in?
No, you cannot. Unfortunately. Sorry, rules. I'm just kidding. What?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting piece of legislation because the whole reason that this came about is I'm involved in a network with a lot of student body presidents, and we wanted to push out some statement. The 10 listed concerns that you see are the exact 10 listed concerns that was sent to Betsy DeVos from the student body presidents. I think 80 or so signed. Is in this statement that was being sent out. Any other questions, now would be the time to address it.
So when it says we, that is referring to
That
you and
we
the
is
other
indicative of the student body presidents that signed off on it. And I think that as we go forward, if we do table this tonight, or if we go into actually voting on it tonight, maybe there's a way to make that more clear with this resolution, that the we in question in these 10 bullet points of we as the University of Dayton Student Government Association. It is indicative of we as the 80 SBs that have signed on to this.
I think it's possible to move all of those numbers up to the whereas clause so that it's more clear. Whereas a document was signed by Brian that outlined the following concerns.
Further questions at this time? Look favorably upon motion to reinstate the rules. Mr. Reese.
Reinstate the rules.
Seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Rules are reinstated. Further points, your motions. Yes.
Just a point of information. So obviously this is huge. It's kind of controversial. So you could say this, I don't know. But I would encourage everyone to just sit down for an hour or so and read through it. Just think about the wording of it. like Ryan or President Rodkin and Chris were just saying, we could move these numbers up to the whereas clause. A lot of it is different than our current judicial system in the U.S. So just kind of think about how that reflects in the census document. But yeah, give it a good read over.
Further points or motions? Yes.
Move to table Senate Resolution 18-10.
Out of order. It's technically not on the floor, so the speaker is like, yes, Mr.
Move
Bruce.
to bring Senate Resolution 18-13 to vote.
Seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Whoever's speaking on this, I recognize you. Mr. Foster? Or Ms. Aleda? Who's got it?
Are we tabling this?
Would you recommend that? You still have to introduce the bill,
Oh,
and you can
okay.
recommend that.
Well, this is just about how universities should acknowledge sexual harassment on campus, and how to deal with it.
Thank you. Further points or motions? Mr. Carwine.
Point of information. So I'm a bit confused as to how this directly relates to student government as a whole. Are we just acknowledging that Brian signed this, or are we taking an active position of some sort?
We're not misquoting.
That's it. Sorry.
Further points or motions?
Table this.
Move to table. Do we have a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it is tabled. Further points or motions? Mr. Reese. Move to adjourn. Seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?